clones versus originals. It's time for a face-off. Game on. Good morning. It is time again for another fragrance video, and it's a slightly different one today. So I was having a little look in my collection, and actually I'd been a bit nosy, looked at my brother's collection the other day, as you would have seen during my cooking video. And I wanted to see what clone fragrances I have and what original fragrances I have as well. And I've got three. I've actually got a few more, but I'm only going to use three today. And essentially what I want to see is I'm going to put them against each other and in combination as well for a few tests. Is it worth just getting the clone? Is it worth just getting the original? Or is it worth having both in combination? Essentially, I'm going to do a few tests today and just see essentially how good the clones are in relation to the original fragrances. How well do they perform? How synthetic are they? And yeah, just give my final thoughts at the end today. So it's not really going to be scored essentially. It's just going to be a few rounds, a few tests. We're going to see how they go. But as you probably you would have just seen in my sort of intro, I've got a few different ones. So I've got here the original Tom Ford Ombre Leather, and then Noted Aromas Milan. That is essentially an ombre leather clone. And I've also got two other sort of clone fragrances as well. And they're from two different clone houses. So I've shown you these before, but we got the original Dead Hermes, and then this one's from the Essence Vault, I should say, 481. And this is just the Dead Hermes clone. It's an eau de parfum, that one as well. So yeah, those two are going to be in the competition as well today. And then the final one is from a company called Devan. Essentially, it's a Spanish company, and this is a clone of this fragrance here, Nasomato Baronda, an amazing boozy scent, which I did a fitness fragrance review on the other day. So check that out if you haven't seen it. So what I'm going to do today, essentially, I'm going to spray the original fragrances here on this arm. I'm going to spray the clones on the other side, exactly the same. And then on this side, I'm going to do a combination of both of them. So I'm almost going to layer the fragrances and just see, after sort of my workout this morning, are they stronger than the sort of clones or the originals on their own? And just see if then maybe it's worth buying them both as like a top-up spray through the day. I'm going to start with Nasomato Bronze. So I'm going to put 3 sprays of this one here. And this is an extract, by the way. So 30ml bottles, or you can get the Nasomato ones in. Lovely, sweet whiskey scent. It is delicious. I can't tell you how much I've told you so many times. I can tell you it's a lovely boozy fragrance. If you love sweet boozy fragrances, a caramel whiskey scent, just very warm, very comforting, very much a statement fragrance, this is the one. So then we've got the clone from Devan, 418. It says unisex. It's a unisex fragrance, but this is certainly masculine. What I like with this clone, about £18, but also not only that, it's 100ml. So it's not a 30ml, it's 100ml this one. And it's a pretty strong performer. I've worn obviously a little bit of the juice, you can see. So I'm going to spray it here. It's definitely not as good though. The combination, the whiskey is nowhere near as strong in this one. This one's got a bit more of a, I really hate to say this, and I mention it a lot, but a little bit of a urine smell. Like a cheap beer. That's like your expensive refined whiskey. This is like the cheap one that you've just bought in a supermarket rather than in a nice wine distillery somewhere. So yes, in terms of that first fragrance, there's no two ways about it. The original is better. So let's have a look at the other ones. So we're going to then go to the ombre leather ones. Original ombre leather, and then the Noted Aromas one, which is called Milan. So Noted Aromas, another fragrance clone house essentially. The ones I've had so far, been very, very impressed. Now, if you've not had ombre leather, obviously it's in the name, it's a leather fragrance, but it's got some fruity notes in it. And this is, in my opinion, the most wearable leather fragrance. This is so smooth, so well-rounded. Leather's a really strong note, and it's still strong in this fragrance, but it's just a little bit more tamed down with, I think, I don't know whether the fruity sweet notes are just there to tame it, but it's lovely. It's actually one that I think is genuinely wearable, and if you are a woman that likes leather fragrances, I think this is the one to get. So how does Milan, as a clone fragrance, smell in comparison? How similar is it? How good is it? Do I think it's as good? Again, this is in 100ml. That was in 100ml. So interesting actually, because I don't have ombre leather. That's my brother's one. That one didn't burn my nostrils, the original. The clone one did a little bit there when I put it on, and it is a little bit harsher. It's a little bit more chemically, which again I'm quite surprised at, because when I originally smelt this, without having that other comparison, that didn't smell like that to me. That smelled almost the same, and it does with a lot of these clone fragrances. Again, when you sort of let it just dry down a bit, they do smell exactly the same. And now it smells pretty much the same. But again, I'm going to say on this sort of category so far, the original definitely smells better. Just a little bit smoother, a bit more well-rounded, just a little bit more classy, expensive. And then the last ones, my ultimate signature scent, the original Ted Hermes, and then the clone from the Essence Vault, which is 481. So I'm going to put the original up here on the top of my arm, near the elbow joint. And then we'll put this one here on the top, near the elbow joint on my right arm. Okay, and funny enough, exactly the same. And again, it's really interesting. When I've smelt the clone fragrances on their own, don't really notice that alcoholic blast at the start. But the original Ted Hermes, it's a little bit more peppery, a bit more orangey in the opening. As this one, it's definitely a little bit lighter. It's not very heavy, this clone fragrance, I must admit. But again, it did have that little bit of cheap alcoholic sanitizer vibe to it. And now it's drying down. It's okay. But what I can say in terms of this first round, just spraying the fragrances side by side, yes, 70, 80, in some cases 90% the same. To be honest, I'd probably say the ombre level is 90% the same. The Ted Hermes clone is probably about 85, and then the Baronde is probably about 65. Yeah, that Baronde is nowhere near as good. But in terms of the first sort of round, if we're talking about clone versus the original, which one do I like the most? The originals certainly have a nicer initial blast. So first sort of point, let's say today, we're going to give to that. And now what we're going to do essentially is I'm going to go for a run. So I'm going to go for a run, I'll do a little workout, and then I'm going to come back, smell my arm, and then we're going to do a couple of tests. So what I've got here, we'll do this while I have my cup of tea later. I've got some tissues. Some have got black pen markers on it where I'm going to spray the clone fragrances, and then I've got 3 that don't have them. And then we're going to test to see if I can tell, I'll shuffle them around. If I close my eyes, pick up one, will I know if it's the clone or the original? So we're going to do that. But workout first, we're going to test their longevity essentially a little bit today. So yeah, I'm going to spray the inside of my arm with both fragrances for a layering. And yeah, we'll see how we get on. Sorry, 5 minutes has gone by. I've been waffling on, so time to get out there. Hopefully you're still here. Oh, it's super breezy this morning. My hat's almost falling off. So I'm sort of 45 to 50 minutes into my run now. Time to smell my arm, just see how the longevity is feeling for both of them. Well, all 3 essentially, because I've got the layering on my arm as well. So right, so all the originals, the actual fragrances without any layering and no clones, really strong. All 3 can smell them really well. Okay, so then in terms of the clones, that Ted Hermes clone, it's really weak. Because there is an eau de parfum, it really doesn't last that one. And then the Baronde one, it's there, but again, it doesn't smell like the Baronde to me. It's got this really synthetic smell to it. In the air, if you catch it, it's quite similar, but you definitely don't, you notice the quality when it touches your nose. It's nowhere near as good. But the one that smells really good in terms of the clones is the Milan, so the ombre leather clone for Noted Aromas. That is just as strong as the one on the other side. It's a little bit more leathery, less fruity, I would say. Right, let's smell the ones in combination. Sorry, I'm switching my arms around because that's where the fragrances are. Okay, interesting. So in terms of the strongest one there, it's definitely, funny enough, the Ted Hermes. I think that's just the original kicking through over the other one to get over the clone. But the Baronde one's the weakest, and then the Ombre Leather just smells as strong as the other one. So in terms of layering a clone and the original, at the moment I'm not getting really any additional strength. I think this is more a case of if you had the sort of clone, you just use it and wear it as a supplement to maybe take it to work because it's a cheaper bottle. But yeah, performance on all of them so far, not too bad, but there's no two ways about it at the moment. The original fragrances are certainly probably better than the clones. Okay, so we're actually going to do a spray off now. So I've just come back from a run, done 13 miles. We will still do the tissue thing, but I'm actually going to leave that a little bit later. I'm going to spray them before I go, let them sit, and then do that test when I come back from the gym. So you'll see that one a little bit later on. Yeah, we're going to do a spray off. So if you haven't seen a spray off before, essentially I'm going to spray the two fragrances in the air. And I think this is actually going to work. I wasn't sure if this was going to work today, but where I noticed the openings was quite different from each other on these fragrances, where one was a little bit harsher. I think I'll be able to detect the differences. So I'm going to spray 3 of these on each, see which one is stronger. So we're going to start with the Baronda clone and the original Nasomato Baronda. So are we ready? Which one's going to win in the competition? The original. Definitely the original. I can tell that's sort of sitting in the background, but that fades a lot quicker. That boozy note in this is so sticky. It is brilliant. The best boozy fragrance. I keep mentioning it. I know you've got to get that. If you love boozy fragrances, this is number one, and that's definitely won that first competition. I can just smell the more realistic booze as opposed to the more synthetic booze from the Devane Baronda clone. So that's the first one. So it's 1-0 to the original fragrances. Let's go for the ombre leather, as these were the ones originally in mine. And again, as I said earlier, the original ombre leather just smells a little bit more well-rounded. It's a bit more fruity, whereas this one feels a little bit harsh on the leather with the noted aromas. So air is clear. 3, 2, 1. Now, this one's harder to detect the differences, but I am getting that stronger fruitiness, and again, that's definitely this. Yeah, the openings on these are certainly a little bit stronger, a little bit more of a blast. Yeah, that's lovely. That is really nice. This is a brilliant clone, by the way, the Noted Aromas one. Really good, but it's definitely not got the same fruitiness. This has definitely got a bit more fruitiness, a bit more well-rounded, bits better leather, just smells a bit more quality. That's lovely. So it's 2-0 against the original. So they're going to win this round, but we'll do these two, and I think it's pretty much safe to say that the original Ted Hermes is going to win. Now, it's really interesting. Something I need to mention as well. The Baronda, the original Baronda, is an extrait, and the actual clone of it is an eau de parfum. Same with this. This is an eau de toilette, the original. This is an eau de parfum, but this is a lot stronger. So just consider that clone. Don't think because this is an eau de parfum, this is going to be stronger than like the original. Just compare it to the other clones within those sort of fragrance houses, but don't look too much at it. I honestly think people look too much, whether it's eau de toilette, eau de parfum. Use it as a general rule of thumb. Right, that ombre leather is strong. Really, I'm going to stand back a little bit for this one. So are we ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, that's gone in my eye. Oh, wow. Well, if it's the wind that was gone at my eye more than at my nose, that one's the winner. And it is the winner. And the reason I can tell you that is this one, again, it's a lot more alcoholic when you go into it. This one has got much more of a pepperiness. They both have that orange opening, that really earthy orange, but you can smell the heaviness from the pepper. And it just feels like that. The heavier notes and the better quality notes always shine through a little bit. And they've certainly done that there. So in terms of the spray off, all 3 of the original fragrances there are definitely stronger than the sort of more synthetic ones. It's obviously hard to tell because, again, they're clone fragrances, but there's just slight nuances I noticed earlier on where the openings on these clones just aren't quite as good quality, and you can detect that with the initial blast. And yeah, it certainly was, again, the original fragrances that have won on longevity there. So what I'm going to quickly do, I'm going to spray the tissues. I'll show you what I mean now, and then we'll head to the gym and we'll do a little update on longevity, see how they're getting on. Okay, so what I've got in front of me is I've got 6 half tissues essentially, and I've got 3 that, as you can see, have got permanent marker on. So what I'm going to do with those quickly is I'm going to spray the clone fragrances. So I'm going to spray the Devane clone here on this one, so like so. I'm just going to let that just sit on my bed for now. That's going to sit on my bed. I'm then going to spray Milan to the ombre leather clone. And again, just sit it on my bed. And I'm going to spray the Dead Hermes clone, the lovely peppery orange smell, like that. And I'm going to leave that on my bed. So what I'll show you quickly is how I'm lying them down, like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm now going to spray the originals, and they're not going to have the things on them. So they're just plain. They haven't got any markings on them. Now what I'm doing here is later on I'm going to shuffle them all up. So once I've let them sit for a bit, when we come home from my gym workout, we'll shuffle them all up, and I'm just going to pick one up. My eyes will be shut. You'll see it all at the time. It'll all make sense later. And then, yeah, we'll see if I can then go, that's the original, that's the clone. So rather than an initial blast here, let's let the fragrances sit for a little bit and see if I can detect the differences. I think this one I definitely will. So this is the Baronda. Again, we'll just rest that on the bed. Just realised actually the pen is leaking on my bed, so I'm better take that off in a second. And ombre leather. There we go. And last one. is the original Ted Hermes. I'll get a bit of paper just to cover them. There we go. So all of the fragrances, I'll quickly show you, are going to be down here like so. You can see that one's leaking. But I've kept them all separate for now. So they're all separate. Just then I know they haven't mixed, and then I get confused with what fragrance was on what tissue. So you're going to line them up on my keyboard now. Let them just sit. It'll be about 3 hours, essentially 4 hours till I smell them again. We'll see if we can detect any differences and which ones smell the best. So yeah, just really for likability. So yeah, let's get on to the gym now anyway. On the way to the gym, it's been 3 hours since I first applied these fragrances. I haven't obviously applied them again since. Just a sort of update on longevity. So let's go for the originals first. The original Borondo. Oh, it's not as strong as I thought it was going to be. That's definitely tailed off a bit. Ombre leather, it's still there. And the original Ted Hermes is actually doing really well. That's got some really good staying power. So let's smell in comparison to the clones. Borondo one's about the same as the original, I'd say. The ombre leather clones easing off. They've not done as well as I expected, actually. Maybe I got quite hot running and maybe more than I thought. And yeah, the Ted Hermes clone actually is almost gone. So what about the layering ones? Funnily enough, it's still that Ted Hermes one that's layered with this sort of clone of it that smells quite strong. That's the strongest of all the fragrances I've got on my arm, but there's not any apart from the sort of Ted Hermes clone that I can't smell at all. So yeah, be about sort of 2.5 hours again until I sort of do a proper assessment on longevity after I've had a shower, and we'll see if any of them come back a bit. Sometimes it's quite hard. It's quite cold today. I've got a runny nose, all those things. Maybe when it settles down a bit and that wind dies down a bit, I'll be able to give you a better interpretation. But yeah, none of them are super strong at the minute, so it's probably more me than anything. But yeah, certainly some of them feel like they've eased off a bit, but I'm quite surprised. I'd say the Ted Hermes, just the original, is doing the best so far out of all the fragrances. So yeah, let's get to the gym, do my workout, and then we'll do a couple of tests when we get home. Sleeves are rolled up, which means only one thing, doesn't it? I've left the gym, it's time to smell my arms. Has it survived the shower? Now, of course, normally I sort of give it 3 hours before I smell my arms. I applied this fragrance at 7:15, and it's now just gone 12. So we're talking what? 8:15, 9:15, 10. About 5 hours, is that? Something like that. Anyway, time to smell them, see if the original fragrance, the clone fragrances, or the layering is the strongest. Okay, well, I'm going to say it now. Don't buy the clone fragrances to layer and expect any stronger performance. It doesn't really make a huge amount of difference with this. I'm not overly surprised by that. You know, it's ultimately the same scent. I can't really notice it. Now, what ones are the strongest? So overall, the originals are definitely the strongest in terms of, you know, all three fragrances put together. The one that's certainly lasted the longest though, so from the originals, it's definitely the ombre leather I'm smelling the most since the shower. And on the other side, it's this very synthetic Borondo clone. So yeah, again, I think that's because it's quite chemically. But yeah, the ombre leather one smells really nice, really well blended together. And I'm still getting all three of those fragrances. Funny enough, the match are weaker than the Hermes and the ombre leather, but yeah, the original scents have certainly won the most here in terms of longevity. Obviously now at this stage of the day, I definitely would want to reapply them. That I wouldn't just want to go without anything now. I think they've certainly lasted long enough, you know, with all the exercise, how warm I've got the shower, exercise, the gym, all of that. I expected them to kind of wear off a bit. But yeah, in terms of longevity, which ones still smell the strongest? As I said, I can kind of smell them all. But yeah, the layering hasn't added any extra performance. No, none at all. So yeah, in my opinion, if you're going for longevity and you're stuck between clones, original, or layering and combining clone and original, just get the original fragrance. That's the quality oils in them. you know, they're built to last a bit longer. They're certainly, you know, you get what you pay for, let's say. Right, we are back. It is 1:15 now. So in front of me, I will show you, I've still my tissues that have these fragrances on. So what we're going to do now, essentially, we're going to do this sort of test. I'm going to see if I can kind of guess which ones which. Obviously, I'll know what fragrances they are, but can I detect the clone from the original? So I'm going to close my eyes in a minute. You're going to see it's completely live. I'm going to pick them all up, essentially just spread them back out, and then just pick one up and go, is that one? Is it the original or is it the clone? And we'll see how close I get to it. So yeah, time to close my eyes and we'll give it a try. So I should have really, my eyes are shut now, I should have really brought my sort of blindfolds because I've got some downstairs. But let's just make sure I pick them all up. I can keep my eyes open for this anyway. Why am I shutting my eyes for picking them up? I'm just going to mix them all up. I can smell Baronda kicking through. Right. So I'm scrunching them all. They're all completely dry now, by the way. Okay, and now eyes are shut, and I'm just going to put some in front of me. 2, 3, 4, 5 over there, and 6. Right, okay, I'm just going to pick one up at random then to start with. So, first tissue. I hope I'm on the camera here. I hope I'm not to the side of it. Right, I'm going to give it a smell. Right, that is definitely... Am I even sniffing it in the right place? I think that is the clone of Terre d'Hermès. And the reason I say that is it doesn't feel very strong. And I can barely smell it on that tissue. So the first one I'm going to say is that. I'm going to put that on the floor behind me there, so I know that's the first one. Right, second one. Right, that's definitely ombre leather. Oh, which one is that? Is that the original or is that the clone? Gonna go original. I think that's the original there. So I'm going to put the original one over there, left side. Third one I'm going to pick up. That's a Baronda. And that's the original Baronda. I can just tell the boozy note there is just much more prominent. So I'm going to put that one by my foot. Next one. Where is it? Where is it? That's ombre leather as well. I think that's the clone. I think that's the clone. That definitely feels a little bit more leathery. So that one's going to go by my right foot. Fifth one. Yeah, that's the clone. That is the Baronda clone. I can just tell it's definitely got more of a urine smell to it. It's definitely not as nice. It smells like a cheap beer, cheap whiskey fragrance. Right, and then the last one, I'm assuming, if I've got this right, should be the original Terre d'Hermès. Yeah, that's got to be the original Terre d'Hermès. Right, I'm going to open my eyes in a second, and yeah, we'll have a look and see if I got it right. Open. The first one I said was this one here, wasn't it? And this was, I believe, the clone of Terre d'Hermès. And it is, obviously, you can tell by the ink stain. I just had to double check. It was that one. Performance isn't great on that. And now I've dropped it. So, performance on that isn't good. And I can definitely tell that that one was that. So, again, completely the same scent. But again, the performance there let it down. So that's how I could detect that was the clone of it. So the second one I then tried was this one down here. And I said this was the original ombre leather. And I was right. Now this was the one, I'll be honest with you, it was really hard to tell the difference. The only reason I did, and I go back to what I said earlier, was the fruitiness. And that's just from smelling them side by side. If you said to me this morning, without smelling ombre leather, the original, and just detecting those slight differences in the opening, I wouldn't have known a difference. But that's the only reason. That was tough though. That was a bit of a guess there. So can't take full credit for that one. Right, the third one, which I think I did, was my left foot, wasn't it? It was this one here, and I said this was the original Baronda. That was so easy. That was the easiest one. As I said earlier, this one essentially was just more a case of the quality. I could just smell the extra quality of that original fragrance. And yeah, that was pretty easy to get that, I must admit. Fourth one was down here by my other foot. So this one must have been that's the clone of Ombre Leather, the Milan by Noted Aromas. But that is super, super close. Let's get the original. It really is. This is just a slightly heavier one on the leather, and this one's got that slight better quality, more well-rounded with the fruitiness. So interesting. I would say with that one though, that was tough. That was a really tough one to guess. This one was easy. That's the clone of Bronda. That's the Devane one. Just hasn't got the same quality. And then with the last one again, it all comes down to just performance. That was the original Turner Hermes. I cannot believe I got 6 out of 6 there, by the way. That, by the way, is complete luck. Complete luck. But it's good. It shows I've obviously got a trained nose. I don't really. But very interesting. And it shows, though, doesn't it? It shows by just having a smell side by side between the actual fragrance and the clone, you can detect differences, whether that's performance, whether that's quality, or whether there's just slight nuances with the differences. Some just have slightly more. I know with Lost Cherry clones I've had before, they're less boozy and they're a little bit more fruity, the synthetic ones, the cheaper ones. So yeah, what we'll do then, we'll talk about the last category, which is price and value for money, because that is really now why people have bought clones. Do I think though, despite those differences, despite the fact I've said again, the original fragrances smell better, is it worth getting the clones over them? Is it better to save your money? Okay, so I'm sitting by my computer at the minute, and it's pretty much safe to say, if we look at the categories, the things I've ranked it on today, it's pretty safe to say the actual fragrances, the original ones, have done better. And there's no surprise there for me. I expect these to have a better opening, not as synthetic, not as harsh, because these are more expensive fragrances. They are the actual thing. Can't beat something that's the original and copy it, really. Let's be honest. I mean, yes, you can get fragrances, clone fragrances that can perform better, but ultimately the oils in these should be better, and you should expect in general, if you're paying more, a better quality fragrance. Not always the rule, but in general. So I'm not surprised these did better today. That means it's done better in projection, they've done better in longevity, and yeah, essentially they did a little bit better in the spray off. All those things we've sort of tested today, the tissue test, they always smell a little bit better, a bit nicer, and I could detect those differences. Now, price and value for money is the last thing I really wanted to touch on. Are these clone fragrances worth buying over the originals still? Is there a reason why you'd still buy them? Well, just to put it in perspective, these three here, I've just done a bit of research on my computer. Roughly for them, if you're paying the sort of shop prices, All Beauty websites that perfume price, you're talking £350 for the original fragrances. You can get these ones, the clones, for about £85 to £90, £100 tops for all three. So essentially, it's 3 times and a little bit more for the original fragrances. Do I think they are 3 times better than the clones? For me, no. And I look at it like a football team. The top teams in the Premier League, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, they are the best teams, and they spend significantly more money than teams like Brentford, West Ham, the teams that are currently down there, Wolves, Burnley. But is the difference that much greater based on what they've spent? No, Chelsea are not 10 times better than, say, Burnley, or 50 times better, however much more they spend. So I think it's really the sort of thing I wanted to kind of round off with the conclusion today is, if you want quality, the originals are brilliant. If you've got a budget for those things, I would always say it's better to get the originals. You cannot beat the originals. However, cost of living, everything's become so expensive, and clone fragrances are getting better and better. Noted Aromas is a fantastic fragrance house. This one is about $29.99. This one's about $155 on All Beauty. That is much, much better value for money than that, even though I think that smells better. But essentially, it's your own situation. If you can have both and you can wear that, you put that on in the morning and then you put that on at a lunch break or something, brilliant as well. So it's about finding what's the right situation. It's not that clone fragrances are bad. I think they're a brilliant thing. That's why I've got them. But I do think the originals are better. But I also think they're very, very expensive. And I don't think they are that much better than the clones based on the price. But it was really interesting today to notice those differences. And I think, again, someone who's walking by you, they're not going to notice those differences. So if you're wearing it for, just a general everyday fragrance, for me, personally, I'd just go for the clones. If there's a fragrance, though, I absolutely love, and I think it's the best fragrance out there, I think this one, for me, being a signature scent, I'm going to buy this because it's under £100 anyway, and that's for a big size bottle. yeah, I can get 3 of these probably for the price of these, but I know this gets me those extra compliments, and I wear it ultimately for me because I really like this one. So yes, all about your situation. I don't think you can compete them against each other. Chrome fragrances are fantastic. I like the idea of them. I know some people don't, but if it saves myself a lot of money in the long run, then I'm quite happy with that. But for special occasions, I still want that original there. So yeah, that's my thoughts today. Please let me know if there's any other sort of clone houses I need to touch on. Obviously, I know there's some Arabic ones, but obviously today we've looked at Devane, which is a Spanish company, Noted Aromas, and the Essence Vault, which is a very popular one as well. And they've all got brilliant benefits on each of them, which we'll touch on, I'm sure, in the future at some point. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed this one today. Interesting, I said, interesting to sort of notice the differences. That's the real take home I've got there. They don't smell 100% the same, but I'll tell you what, they're not bad at all. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. The fragrance film's coming out, a very, very different one tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to filming it though, so hopefully you'll enjoy watching that. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.